correct?
No, that's not accurate.
Senator Schmitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to pivot away from the Democrats' fake outrage on lawfare and talk about real lawfare. How has your representation of President Trump in the biggest weaponization of the justice system against a single individual because they didn't want to get back into office and lawfare shaped your view of the justice system?
Well, from the perspective of a prosecutor, Senator, it turned me into a person who wanted to get that building back on the right track. A track where people are, in fact, doing the right thing for the right reasons. And I think there's many, many, many people, career civil servants in the department who are doing just that. But I also think that there are parts of the department that had lost sight of that obligation. And I saw that in my experiences as a defense lawyer. And so what I would say is that that experience provided me with intense focus on reform efforts to make sure that the unelected bureaucracy at the department was not in a position to subvert the political will of the democratically elected president.
Let's take a little time machine back to 2023 when you, as you in your previous testimony talked about, decided to join Todd Blanche in the legal team. That was at the time many people in this country sort of wrote off President Trump as a candidate. The Democrats didn't think he was ever going to win. I endorsed him very early. I thought he would and was hoping that he would, but the links to which nonprofits and other organizations went to punish anyone who was involved in either defending President Trump or had worked for President Trump, trying to deny them employment, I mean, is well documented. So to take that on, I would agree with your character. I think that took a lot of courage for you to do it. In hindsight now, it looks like obviously a very smart decision. You guys were very successful in the defense, and he went on to win the election and the popular vote in a landslide. But at the time, that wasn't the case. I want to ask you, in some of this lawfare, Michael Colangelo left. He was the #3 guy at DOJ and left to join the New York District Attorney's Office in the prosecution of President Trump. Is that unusual for someone to leave that kind of position to go to a DA's office with prosecuting a political opponent?
Senator, I have to be very careful here because of the judicial canons that bind me as a nominee.
Let me ask it this way. Have you ever heard of something like that happening before?
To my understanding, that was a pretty unique set of circumstances.
Let me speak about another set of unique circumstances. Is it unusual for like a assistant district attorney in a Georgia case to be meeting with the White House counsel's office about a prosecution of President Trump? Would that be sort of an unusual set of circumstances to be visiting the White House? Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of a scenario like that previously?
Senator, if I could frame it this way, there's publicly filed briefing signed by myself and other defense lawyers when we were defending President Trump that regarded the circumstances that you just described as part of a discovery violation. Okay.
Tish James, the Attorney General in New York, ran for office saying she wanted to go after and prosecute President Trump. Have you ever heard of an attorney? I ran for Attorney General in my state. Have you ever heard of anyone campaigning on the idea in the United States of America? I'm not talking about a third world banana republic, but in the United States of America, criminally prosecuting a political opponent. That was their pitch to the voters. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
I've got to be very careful here about getting too close to politics.
Sure.
Under the judicial canon, Senator.
Okay. Jack Smith was appointed special prosecutor to try to, again, imprison President Trump for the rest of his life so he couldn't run for office. Could you speak, were you involved in the legal team defending President Trump in that prosecution as well?
both in the District of Columbia and in the Southern District of Florida.
Could you just rattle off a couple of things that you think were unusual, departures from how prosecutors would normally handle cases like that again has informed your position now to make sure that that never happens again to somebody in this country?
I will, Senator, and I referenced some of these a moment ago, and I just want to be clear. What I'm doing is just referencing public arguments that I made as a defense lawyer.
Yes.
But yes.
Not personal musings. These are, yes, absolutely what we're
Nor political
filed with the
views.
court.
These are legal arguments that we presented that, for example, in a case as complex as the case in Florida, with the allegations that were set forth, in our judgment as defense lawyers, we argued to the court that it was highly unusual to try and proceed to trial as quickly as those prosecutors initially proposed.
Anything else that struck you as unusual that you can recall from the public filings?
I think just to be safe and to stay on the
well,
side of
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make the point that while the Democrats are trying to manufacture something here, like we're on the other side of the most political prosecution of a political opponent this country has ever seen, and I hope to God that never happens again. And your experience, I think, will make you a better judge. So congratulations.
Senator Ronald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask every nominee who